Good evening. Thank you all for finding out time to join us today for F&B Talks by the Restaurant Times. My name is Ria and I would be your host for today. For those who are here with us for the first time, F&B Talks is a knowledge series which brings together people who seek a deeper understanding of the world of restaurants. Our aim is to build a free knowledge base on various aspects of running a restaurant business. Today we have with us a very special guest. Her name is Preet and she is the co-founder of Gourmet Tales company, an F&B food curation and brand consultancy which was established in 2018. Gourmet Tales provides food management, curation, and conceptualization to events, restaurants, tourism boards, and malls. They also create varied food related experience packages. In the past, the company has worked on events such as the NH7 Weekender, Filmfare Awards, YouTube Fan Fest, Mahindra Blues, and Mom in the Bay for their food zones and VIP catering. Our guest today is one of the co-founders of Gourmet Tales, Preet Sanghvi. She has over 8 years of experience in the F&B industry, having worked with Preetham Hospitality Group, with brands such as the Grandmama's Cafe, MRP, House of Lloyd, amongst others. Preet has a master's in marketing from the University of Bath in UK, along with a master's in gastronomy from the University of Gastronomic Sciences in Italy. The company is now expanding into the UAE market and connecting India and UAE hospitality market. Welcome to F&B Talks, Preet. It's our pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Ria. Thank you for having me here.
Great. So, without any further ado, I think we'll just start with the questions. So, Preet, first of all, while doing my research, I found out that you started your professional journey as a PR consultant and you also worked in digital marketing. So, I'm just curious to know that how did that transition you into starting your own F&B curation and consultancy company?
So I've always tried, tying in my passion for food and my, background in marketing in some way or the other. I've always loved food. So I've always worked in the PR and marketing space for restaurants and in the hospitality industry. I was working with the Preetham group where I worked on brands like Grandmama's Cafe, MRP, Preetham Da Dhaba, and, everything under their chain. And I honestly attribute most of my learnings to all of them. But I feel the actual transition happened all thanks to a lot of people and also to my travels. So the more and more that I traveled and explored different food cultures, attended more events, hospitality events, food events, music concerts around the world, I just realized how important food could be to any event or destination. And I came across such amazing brands, not just abroad but also in India, and I was just amazed. So of course, I knew I wanted to do something with food apart from marketing, but all these were just ideas, and they would definitely not have become a reality without certain people, is what I would say. Starting with just the OML team, who gave us the first of chance to experiment this entire concept of food curation to one of the biggest events, that was the Bakari NH7 Weekender back in 2018. And we got to explore the entire food zone, right from their food stalls to their VIP zone, catering, everything. And we just managed the entire food zone, and it was a success. And since then, there's just not been any kind of looking back. And of course, if it wasn't for my co-founder, that's Devika Segal, who's also my friend, we both just had these ideas and this dying passion for food and hospitality that we just put it all in together for Gourmet Tales and made it happen. So back in 2018, we were just two girls who wanted to do something with food and had this whole mission to spread the sheer love, culture, and joy of food to events and festivals. And yeah, that's how we started, and that's how this entire transition happened.
Great. I think I'm really inspired by your journey because a lot of us say that we are foodies, but not all of us get the chance actually to work in the industry closely. So I'm really happy that you're able to do that, and congratulations to you for doing so well. And you spoke about the NH7 Weekender. I actually got the opportunity to attend the 2019 one in Pune. So I mean, it's an amazing event with some of the really good food options that you get, and the theme is amazing. There's always a theme, I think, every time,
Yeah.
and the event is curated accordingly. So can you tell me what goes behind the scenes when you are actually curating the event from a food perspective? How do you decide the kind of stalls for the event? Does it change by different regions or the target audience? So can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm glad you were there for the 2019 one. And hopefully, we did enough justice to the food scene there as well. Um, this has been one of the core competencies of our work. And that's where we bring in the value as food curators to any particular event. Honestly, I've just been amazed with the kind of innovation, taste, and creativity that the food world has experienced in the past few years, especially in India. It's no longer difficult to find or bring, something like an Ethiopian cuisine or Korean cuisine or even a Nordic cuisine to a country like India. Like our own people are also creating this kind of cuisine. So the industry is definitely growing, and at the same time, it's also becoming very close. So today we have a network of around 300 F&B brands, retailers, vendors on our database. We have expanded into careful research into these different concepts of the food vendors, not just their cuisines, but everything, right from the speciality to their price factor. There are a lot of elements that we have to keep in mind when it comes to onboarding any kind of food vendor. But at the same time, I think what is also important is the theme of the event. So what I can do for a music event will be completely different from what we do for a private or a corporate event. We have multiple restaurants, chefs, small retailers, home chefs, bakers, food trucks, everything in our network. So depending on exactly the concept of or the theme of the event is where we put our curation into play. Our team specially looks into the kind of event that's happening. If it's a music event like a Bacardi NH7 Weekender, we have to be very, like, their requirements are different, their target audience is very different. The kind of spending that they would do would be different. So we have to carefully think of the kind of brands we bring in out there. At the same time, we try our best not to replicate any kind of cuisine or even a vendor. We just don't get into curating the layout and the vendors, but once we onboard the vendors, we also have to curate their menus along with them, because it has to appeal to the audience out there. We can't just have a long short menu, because with events you need fast serving food, you
Yeah,
need to see the price points and things like that.
yeah,
So all of that is what we specially look into, and we work very closely with all our vendors at the same time, even with our clients. And one very important thing is I just something that I think I personally love doing is promoting new homegrown concepts and giving the audience also a very different feel and experience when it comes to food. So we just don't want to bring in another Subway or a McDonald's. We want to bring in different concepts, different brands, catering to different, events or the destination or whatever the client is about.
right. Right. Very interesting. I think you shared a lot of interesting insights on what goes behind the scenes, because as consumers, we only get to experience the event firsthand. We just listen to the music, we enjoy the food, but we don't really understand that it is so hard to put together an event of such a scale. So kudos to you for doing all the work that you do. Preet, I'm also curious about your team and how do you work? Like, how many people are there in your team, and how do you go about a particular project once you start?
Well, Gourmet Tales is what I would currently say a team of some of the most passionate foodies in the ultimate sense. We, of course, love food, but we also want to know more. And currently, my team is like, we have this small team, and I think they will kill me if I do not mention them because they are actually the ones who work so hard behind everything. We currently have, I work with a lot of consultants, of course, but in our core team, of course, I'm there. We have Bhumi, who is one of my main experience coordinators, and she's the one who will always, go up out there and coordinate with all the vendors, come up with marketing ideas and activities. We have a research coordinator, that's Krishna, who looks into the operations, into researching, building an entire database of our networks, because currently we are managing and we are of course growing. Our aim is to have by the end of 2021 have at least 500 F&B vendors on our network group across India and Dubai, of course. And then we have a PR consultant, that's Devanshi. We have also a design help. Then, of course, I work with a lot and lot of consultants, especially depending on the kind of projects that we have, because we have chef consultants, operations consultants, whom we work with on project basis. For all projects, we usually always have a team of interns and volunteers who are always up out there, because when the actual event happens is when the actual work happens of the coordination. So that's when we bring in a lot of people, and we are always open to getting in more people who would want to work with us for events, especially. But our core team is, of course, here based in both in Mumbai, and also now that we're expanding in Dubai, we are trying to get in more people out here as well, who could manage our events and at the same time help out with the ideation. So yeah, that's essentially our team. And for events, usually we always work on a timeline of around 2 to 3 months, because a lot of planning goes onto it, onboarding of the vendors, doing all the analysis, making their menus, the operation bit. So all of that takes around 2 to 3 months per event.
Right.
When it comes to dealing with F&B clients, because we also do F&B consultancy for our vendors. So
Right.
that's like something that is just ongoing, which is managed by our team, and we work on strategies along with them. And we have also now diversified into our own in-house catering. So that's where we brought in the team of Mini Punjab Catering, because we have our own separate catering arm today. So they are our team members as well. So yeah, that's pretty much about my team currently.
Perfect. Preet, you mentioned that you are expanding into the UAE market. So, can you maybe tell me about the differences that you see with events happening in UAE and in India, and the landscape? How does it differ, if it does, or
That's a
what are the similarities?
that's where we saw the opportunity. I have worked in Dubai as well, so and I've lived a major chunk of my life here. So I keep seeing how uh, innovation is actually implied out here in this space, and I definitely see a lot of scope in India as well. Something that can be replicated from not just UAE but from different markets as well. Currently, UAE is one of the most vaccinated uh, countries. So that's why all the events have started off again out here. And the way they have implemented it is amazing. The tourism department here has done an amazing job when it comes to doing all these events very safely, and at the same time, very innovatively. They've tried to put in as much effort as possible to make consumers feel safe and also come out there and experience the sheer magic of these events. So definitely there's a lot of I would say scope out here, and something that India can also learn from once things, of course, open up. Both wise, I mean, I would say with UAE, it's different because there are 200 nationalities here. It's a gastronomic hub.
Right.
We again find just everything out here, and it's the curation bit is definitely amazing. We have different food truck festivals. There are different gourmet festivals. There are restaurant weeks. There are many different things that's always happening out here that keeps the F&B space up and running all the time.
Right.
And I definitely feel that I'm just waiting, to be very honest, that when India opens up and we can actually implement all these ideas back to India as well, because even India is full of scope. I mean, I feel Bombay, as a matter of fact, is another gastronomic hub. We have anything and everything. So definitely a lot of scope. But I feel in India, the concept of curation is still very new. Not a lot of people still understand it. We started off 3 years ago, and I know how challenging it was for us to explain to even events or any kind of festivals, or even the government, as a matter of fact, that why is curation needed? Why is food so important? Because if food is not done well, people will always talk about it,
Right.
and people don't understand the value of that. So there's definitely a lot of scope, and now with good, like, great festivals happening across India, there are a lot of festivals I know of which we are currently even trying, like, working on. Hopefully will happen in 2021, so I'm really excited for that. But in that time, till then, we're exploring the UAE market because there are great events happening here as well.
Great. Yeah, I think all of us know that UAE is referred to as the gastronomic hub of the world, and the fact that you can use the expertise there from there to apply to India, I think that's amazing. And on that note, Preet, can you tell me about you know one of your experiences or the projects that you did, which was the most interesting to you and where you learned a lot?
I would definitely give it to the Bakari NH7 Weekender because
Right.
it was my first project,
Right.
and it was a great learning for me. And it was amazing. Why? Because we just started off without, like, thinking what we are getting into, but we just knew one thing, that we have an idea and we want to make it a reality. So it was challenging for sure, because we were given a task of doing something for one of the biggest events of India. And we had to bring in 35 different food vendors, and with the entire challenge of no one has to be repeated. Everyone has to have a different concept. And of course, it was challenging and very, I think, an enriching experience to learn, because we learned not just about how the operations work, but we also learned about how these vendors work, what the costing goes like. So it was great. And at the same time, we got to explore. It was like a playground, to be very honest, for me, because I could think of bringing in a different food truck. I could think of bringing in a different pop up, a different kind of experience. We did the curation for the Doers VIP club. So we had to pair food and their cocktails. So we were given a list of cocktails, and then we had to bring in our catering, a vendor, to pair that kind of cocktail with food. So it was my first experience with pairing food and drinks, and all of this just happened in one event. And we learned so much. We got a lot of recognition, and just post that, I remember it was just 5 days of the Bakari NH7 weekend, or probably a week. And we got a call from Mahindra Blues saying, "Hey, were you the guys, who were doing the Bakari NH7 weekender? Because we saw you there and we saw the change. And we want to do that. We have an event happening because that's the biggest jazz festival happening every Feb." So they were like, "Okay, it's happening in 2 months. Will you do it?" And I think that was the biggest highlight of our journey, because that was when we just realized that, wow, there's so much we can do. So I think this event with NH7 Weekenders always the pioneer, because again, it's like 50,000 people whom we are dealing with, not just the 35 vendors and the food trucks and the zones that we are doing, but we are also trying to satisfy the 50,000 people who are coming out there.
Yeah.
So I feel that has been one of the best experiences. And post that, every event has had its own unique thing. Like Mahindra Blues has also been amazing, because even we've done their VIP catering, which has been amazing, because we had to curate the entire menu there. So that was a great experience. And I think, again, one more great experience was the YouTube Fan Fest, because that again was great, because we were not just looking at the audience, but we were looking at the artist management also. So for the artist catering, we were looking into that. And it's not really easy dealing with artist catering as well, because you have to curate food according to their needs.
Right.
So things like that, one of the great experiences. I think each and every event has its own thing.
Right. Perfect. Great. Preet, my next question to you would be, we all know that COVID impacted businesses across the board, but experiential sectors such as restaurants or events were the first and the foremost hit. So, I mean, what kind of challenges did you experience when COVID hit, and what were your biggest learnings?
So definitely, I think our industry was one of the biggest hit industries. Of course, mainly we were doing events. So, the event industry is what is badly hit. And of course, the hospitality industry. But I feel we took this time to actually learn, expand our uh, whole network of F&B concepts, vendors, to prepare for our upcoming events. We've also expanded into the curation of destinations and corporate events and malls, because that's where we saw the opportunities. So we just realized that, okay, events is not the only thing that needs curation, but there are other avenues as well. Definitely, it's going to take a while to get back, but pitches are still going on. We've been lucky enough to get a few good um, events that we'll be soon working on. So that's a great thing. We've been consulting our vendors and brands on different growth strategies and making them grow their business beyond just events. And I think one great thing that happened with the pandemic was when I came to UAE, and of course, with events and other things happening here again, we've started working on some really interesting projects here as well. And I think it's just a time, I think, to grow our vision and work with some really exciting projects with the government and also in the private sector. So yeah, hopefully next year will be great with all the events starting off. We'll have to adapt, of course, in different ways. We'll have to go, like, some things will have to be virtual, some things will have to be in person, different kind of experiences that we can create. But I think that's what is giving us also an opportunity to think out of the box and be more creative with food.
I think that makes a lot of sense because what COVID also gave us was a lot of time to businesses and individuals as well to rethink what we are doing on a daily basis and look at the future and what might work better in the future once this ends, hopefully. So I think you touched upon events going virtual, and I do know that the weekender, the NH7 Weekender, happened virtually last year. So do you think that this could be the future of events with technologies such as AR and VR also coming in, or do you think that this is just going to last as long as COVID does?
No, definitely with technology coming in, this is a big yes. It is definitely the future, but I think it's going to be not just AR and VR, it's going to be MR. That's going to be a mixed one. A lot of events, yes, are happening virtually. In fact, the Pakadi NH7 Weekender this year also is looking at VR options. And that's a great thing because we can become experimental with food out here as well. Um, a lot of brands are trying to connect content to commerce, and especially with food and alcohol deliveries. I'm still a very strong believer in in-person experience, and I still think that nothing is going to really compare like an actual in-person experience, which hopefully maybe post a few months will happen in limited capacity. So always be a mix of both, which I feel is fine right now, and we just need to adapt more to it. I can definitely see that there's a lot of digital interaction when it comes to customers, and that results in a lot of real time sales as well. So that's a great thing. And experiential marketing has, I think, changed the purpose and construction of the food industry today. So millennials are always looking out for different experiences when it comes to anything. And food, of course, can definitely be tapped into out here. A lot of events are definitely planning, even the ones that we are planning are going virtual. So we're just trying to pull in virtual engagement via food with our food vendors as well, as to what we can do. There are things like DIY kits, there are online masterclasses, meal and alcohol pairing kits, things like that are really picking up right now. So that would be great. I think there's a great scope in that as well.
Right. Preet, what are some of the upcoming trends that you see in the F&B market apart from what you just spoke about, the events going virtual?
I think I would definitely say there's a lot of interest in home cooking, which, of course, with nourishing home cooked meals. So I think home experiences are definitely going big. Um, with health being the forefront, many people are sticking to dining at home. So these experiences can definitely be tapped into. And that's where I see a lot of scope for food retail products like condiments, oils, sauces, cheeses, dips, all these things can really be tapped into because of this kind of trend. Another thing, I think, of course, there's a rise in food deliveries. So all restaurants and vendors, restaurant concepts, whatever, the retail market has to be very adaptable when it comes to deliveries and technology. There's also a very big rise, I would say, in regional Indian cuisine. I think this is something that the pandemic has definitely helped, because initially there was not much interest in people about the different regional cuisines of India. And in the past 1.5 year, I've seen people wanting to experiment with different cuisines. It's not just about being, having Gujarati or Punjabi food, but now people are exploring, the different aspects. It could be something like Malabari cuisine to something like your Northeast Indian cuisine, which people were not so aware of. So I think that trend is also rising, and people are promoting homegrown concepts, local products. Homegrown concepts are really on the rise. Another trend, I think, that I have personally seen, not just in India but everywhere, is the rise of Asian and Southeast Asian cuisine. Um, it's no longer just high end Chinese food. People like cuisines like Korean, Malaysian, Vietnamese, all these kind of cuisines have really come in forefront, and people are really appreciating this kind of food. So I think that's also another trend. And I think the non-alcoholic beverages market is really growing. The coffee culture is growing. People are going in for artisanal coffee and teas. So I think this also is a very important trend. People are going for fermented drinks like kombucha. There are these different flavored waters. All of these have really risen in the past 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I think you gave us a lot of food for thought there. So thank you for sharing the insights. Preet, I think your career journey has been commendable, and the kind of success you've been able to achieve, the kind of projects that you've been able to work on in such a short span of time is really great. So I know a lot of young people like me or others also look up to you, to people like you, and they want to enter the F&B industry in some way or the other. So what would your advice be to these people?
This is my favorite question, because I just feel, even though the hospitality industry has been one of the hardest hit in this pandemic, I'll say if you have the true passion for food and service, please stick to it. Uh, the food industry is definitely not about just making profits. And if that's what you feel, then that's wrong. But it is more about, I feel, the passion and the kind of satisfaction that you get out of the consumer appreciating your food or your service. So if you're a foodpreneur, you want to start out in the business, I feel just learn, grow, and stick to it. I have studied food in a very different way. I've not learned cooking at all. And I still appreciate food, because I just realized there's so much more to food than just cooking and going to a restaurant. Food has so much history, it has psychology behind it, it has things like sustainability and even economics and laws behind it. So learn as much as you can while you are in this industry, and give it in, I think, your best. And if you have an idea, I would highly recommend stick to it. Try learning as much as you can in it. Work in the field, of course. Please work in the field before you, just jump into it. And definitely, that'll make all the difference. Like always, try seeking a mentor. I have had a lot of mentors whom I attribute a lot to in my life. I am who I am because of them. So definitely, I've learned a lot about the food industry via mentors. So definitely find your mentor, stick to it, and go live your dream.
Thank you so much for spending time with us, Preet. It was lovely speaking to you, and your love for food and servicing is infectious. And I wish you all the best for your journey ahead.
Thank you so much for having me.